bring us chocolate?
Okay, Jake, I think you're up.
We're
Whoever.
going Tammy.
Oh, Danny.
Tammy
Okay.
first on here. So, just to follow the agenda. Wait, no, sorry, I have it backwards. You were right.
Hey,
I was
don't
thinking
ever,
that was. Yeah.
don't ever doubt what I'm doing,
I know.
Mac.
I'm sorry.
So we're ready?
You're ready.
Okay. Well, good morning.
Morning.
Bruce, been a while since I've seen you. And
I see your wife out shoveling snow every morning. I'm kind of wondering where you're at.
Just in the forest.
I'm trying to teach the kids how to shovel too, but there's been so much snow. We actually were, I don't know if you saw us sledding off our roof, and
Oh, really?
the kids were sledding off the roof and jumping off the roof.
That's
So
awesome. That's a good memory, though.
You'll always remember
Yep.
that.
my
I
wife's like, we gotta
remember.
make some core memories. Let's just let them do it before we shovel it off. So,
That's cool. Perfect.
now I got to dig out around the house because it's all buried.
Coming. Yes.
But I mean, maybe that's the first thing I'll say is that, we've, my name is Jake Palma, just to introduce myself to you, Commissioner Jamie Harvey and Sylvia Stubbs. I'm the field manager for the Bureau of Land Management here in Monticello. And we've been here for about 4 years. Hard to believe it's been almost 4 years that we've been in the community. And I grew up in small towns like Monticello, all over the West, and really come from a small, maybe even a smaller town than Monticello in rural Eastern Oregon. It's kind of a logging town.
You brought the rain.
I brought the rain. Yes. Yes.
Sylvia, his dad used to be in the same position he's in now.
Oh. So
Except for a few positions higher, actually.
Yeah.
But,
You'll get there.
but
you'll get there.
I don't know. Not sure I'm interested, but yeah, just as a background, first and foremost, just grateful to be in this community, to be a part of the community, and to have the privilege and responsibility of stewarding the public lands here in San Juan County for the Bureau of Land Management. Our field office, we manage 1.8 million acres of federal public lands, and 1.1 million of those is BLM lands in Bears Ears National Monument. There's another couple 100,000 acres on the forest within the county, but 1.1 million acres is BLM of Bears Ears National Monument. And some of our responsibilities as an agency, I don't know how familiar you are with the Bureau of Land Management, but we deal, especially in this area nowadays, it used to be a lot more mining, oil and gas, and those grazing. Nowadays, one of the biggest growing aspects of public land management is recreation and managing people that are coming to this landscape to recreate and visit the various places within this landscape. We also deal with the cultural resources, as those are abundant here, and one of the main reasons Bears Ears was designated a national monument was to protect some of those resources out there. So it's a lot of public lands issues, a lot of complexity there, and a lot of overlap with some of the interests and goals of the county as well. And so we actually have a monthly coordination meeting with San Juan County employees. So Mac is there, and Nick is there, and several other employees from the county to coordinate on the various issues, to highlight some of the important efforts from the county's perspective. And the BLM is there to kind of offer some updates and some opportunities for the county to participate in public land management on BLM lands. I just wanted to introduce myself to you all so that you know who I am as the field manager here in Monticello, managing most of the public lands of San Juan County, of BLM, at least on the BLM side. There is a small portion that the Moab field office manages that's closer to the city of Moab. It's essentially from Wilson Arch all the way up to the county line is where Moab manages. Everything else, if it's BLM, it's the Monticello field office. just a couple of quick updates for you all. We often hear that Bears Ears National Monument was designated and there's no visitor center to kind of capture a lot of the visitors. We're striving to partner with a lot of the visitor centers locally. So we've done a little bit with Monticello's visitor center. I've done probably more with the Blanding Visitor Center, making sure they have information to share with the public that's coming. Working with Edge of the Cedars a little bit, and we also have the Cane Gulch Ranger Station. It's a remote BLM station out towards the Bears Ears Buttes on Cedar Mesa. So we have 3 to 4 park rangers there in the spring and fall during the busy seasons.
Jake, Cane Gulch, is that same thing as Grand Gulch?
Different, yeah. They're in the same area, but so the ranger station really is. It was created as because we have a permit system for people going to like Grand Gulch in these areas, and so these rangers are there to provide information to people who are coming to that area, and to help educate them and make sure that the permits that they have permits and understand the situation that they're getting into, going into these areas where in the summer there's not a lot of water, it's hot, there's no cell service,
Too muddy in the spring.
Which has definitely been an issue the last couple of weeks because we're still in winter here. Yeah. Everywhere else it seems to be warming up a little bit and grass is growing and
spring break and
coming for spring break, and we had some people get pretty stuck in Butler Wash even on I think it was on Friday, and so we had a park ranger that was out there helping them get unstuck because there was no getting out. And we have a lot of people coming into the office or calling and they're upset because it's like, what do you mean we can't come out there? And it's like, well, you can, but it's not going to be fun and you're probably going to get stuck. There's still snow and they come in the morning when it's still frozen. And then by the time they try to get out, it's thawed and they just sink in and get stuck. So a lot of communication right now with the public of, conditions aren't great.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
They don't believe you. Like in Blanding, they ask people, where's Bears Ears? And I said, look around, and they said, how can we, there's on one road, there's dirt road. It's really bad this time of year, but they don't believe you. They think you're trying to discourage them, but then they get stuck, which is hard for our sheriff department and everybody else. So anyway, but we also manage the permit system for the San Juan River. So a lot of people float the San Juan River. We get thousands and thousands of applications every year for people to get a permit. I think the odds this year were less than 4% to get a permit to float the river. So it's a pretty sought after experience.
What are you anticipating for San Juan River as far as flow?
I think the expectation is it's going to be a good water year. So I don't know. Generally, you get into June and the flow kind of tapers off a little bit. But I think
came across it last night and it wasn't running very. It was pretty low.
What was it at last night?
I just crossed the bridge there.
Okay, yeah.
And I could see a little stream down there, but
really?
It wasn't very big.
Yeah, we've had some staff floating it in the last week or so. So it seems cold, but I just think on some of these issues, our coordination with county staff and with you all, I think is important. There's some communication with the public that we need to continue to do, and we work with Elaine and Nick and others to find ways to better educate and communicate with the public on some of the challenges of recreating in an area where there is not a lot of water in some months and no cell service and not a lot of services at all for people out there when they're not necessarily accustomed to that if they're coming from Arches or a more developed national park like that. I think our law enforcement, we have 2 law enforcement officers here in the Monticello office, and they work really closely with the San Juan County sheriffs. And I think, we're working on developing an agreement between the sheriff's office and the BLM here to work together on some of those law enforcement responsibilities out here. So looking forward.
That past agreements, are those not in force anymore?
I think some of them, I'm not 100% sure, but I think they may have expired or, okay. but I met briefly with Sheriff Lehigh Lacey, and I think we're working on developing a new agreement. Similar, I think the Forest Service just signed an agreement with the Sheriff's Office. Maybe the biggest thing to just mention and update is related to Bears Ears National Monument. So it was designated in 2016, modified in 2017, and then restored again in 2021 in October, and with another mandate to create a resource management plan for Bears Ears National Monument. In a sense, it's a framework of how are we going to manage this landscape to protect the resources that President Biden identified in his presidential proclamation. And so San Juan County is what's called a cooperating agency in this process. Essentially, that is the ability to work with the BLM and the Forest Service to help have a role in the development of this management plan. An earlier role, because eventually we'll release the draft documents to the public to review and to comment on. But a cooperating agency has the ability to review and work on some of these documents even before the public has an opportunity to. So San Juan County is a cooperating agency, the state of Utah, the Park Service, I think several of the local communities here, I think Bluff, Blanding, Monticello are all involved in this as cooperating agencies. A couple of tribal nations are involved in as cooperating agencies as well. And so coming up, actually, the timing is next week on the 30th of March. The county and all other cooperating agencies will get a copy of the preliminary draft alternatives for the Bears Ears National Monument Resource Management Plan. Essentially, it's a draft of the options that we have in front of us to manage Bears Ears National Monument in a way that meets the intent of the presidential proclamation. So I'm not sure who all from the county will review that. I know Nick will probably be heavily involved in that.
Is there any, you holding any public meetings to allow the public to weigh in on those options or not?
Not at this phase of the planning process. In our process, the public will get the draft plan and EIS, environmental impact statement, and we'll have several public meetings there, and it'll be a 90-day comment period, so it'll be 3 months, and we'll take comments from the public, and then we'll take a few months I'm sure we'll get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of comments on those documents from people across the world probably who have an interest in Bears Ears. And
Jake, can I just take a minute and explain something about Bears Ears and get your reaction a little bit?
Sure.
So this is for you two and Mac and whoever else. In Bears Ears, over 1 million acres, there are state school sections all over the Bears Ears. And that's 640 acres sections. What Sitla wants to do is move those sections, and I believe the BLM is in concurrence with this, move those sections out of the Bears Ears because they won't have as much value as if they move them out and move them to other places. Now, Sitla really likes to move them to someplace where they're going to maximize their return. But last year I started meeting with them and expressed to them that I felt like San Juan County, if they moved any or all of those sections out of the county someplace else, it would be detrimental to the county. So in the process of talking to Sitla and their attorneys, talking to BLM and myself, more on the national level, I think, with the BLM, they agreed to leave maybe half of those sections in San Juan County. And the BLM has agreed to let them trade someplace in the county, which in my opinion and others, we want to find places in the county where mineral extraction can take place. And we're somewhat convinced that mineral extraction is not as possible in the southern part of the county because of the artifacts and the cultural resources that are in the county. But if you go north into Dry Valley and down in that area, there's little, if any, cultural resources. And so we've kind of agreed with them to put those sections out towards the Lisbon Valley copper mine and towards the gas plant and those areas out there. And so this takes congressional action, and we met with
U.S. Congress.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we've met with Senator Lee, who is going to sponsor the bill to do that. Now, before that trade happens, the grazers were very concerned about losing their toehold in the BLM area. And so BLM has agreed, and this is taking place now, to allow those grazers to drill wells on those state sections before they're traded out. And I don't know how many wells have been drilled, but there's a lot of wells have been drilled, and a lot of those grazers have corrals and other things on the state section which aren't allowed on the BLM. And so the BLM is going to, I'm probably saying the wrong thing, use an administrative rule to allow them to go in and out there to maintain their corrals and their wells and stuff with motorized vehicles.
Yeah, one of the concerns I have is about the ranchers, because I'm talking to somebody, one of the commissioners around the area of Escalante. One of the talk is going into zero grazing, and that would affect the counties around, 2 counties around the Escalante area. So that would be something that, and I expressed my feeling when we met one day with Settler about the ranchers and things like that. And for now, the ranchers are very valuable to us, as they like to eat beef. Anyway, so I think some of the development can be things to help have a visitor center and different things, but we'll wait, see what has come up. But I do have some concerns about that, and
so Jake,
because we are so limited on our slice of the pie, when we have all these other lands, the being reserved for other things, we only have a small percentage. So if we do that, have some settler land so we can develop and do other things to help us. We need money. We are a poor county. We are rich in heritage, rich in minerals, all kinds of stuff we have in this part of the land, but we cannot extract them, and they're getting less and less. So anyway, thank you for that.
So, Jake, do you want to correct me or comment on anything I said about the trade?
No, I think you explained it. I think, in the presidential proclamation, it does talk about, the state of Utah and the BLM, and will explore, coming together and creating an MOU and working through this process to do a land exchange. And so,
but the BLM has no intent to limit grazing on these sections that are traded out, do they?
I mean, grazing is an identified use as an allowable use in the presidential proclamation. And so it's not something that we are being told in a presidential proclamation that designated Bears Ears to not allow grazing. It actually is identified as an important use on this landscape, and an allowable use. The caveat there is so long as we can still protect the resources that are out there that were intended to be protected.
The BLM has a section over here by Lisbon Copper Mine, and they're going to trade that section to Sitla. Sitla will own their land by the copper mine, and that BLM land will transfer over into Bears Ears. And the grazer, I don't see any way that it affects the grazing.
Okay.
But, you know, the ranchers are concerned about having access to their corrals, having access to the wells, the water wells that they've drilled there. I think that BLM's okay with them having a limited ingress and egress into those areas. Am I up in the night?
Yeah, I think for some of these range improvements that exist, I mean, if this is an appropriate and needed use for that allotment, then it also helps with the protection of monument objects. I think, you know, there may be some cases where it's a case by case, you know, situation where it may need to think about something a little different. But I think, you know, in general, you know, we'll work with ranchers to find ways.
I think it's important that we have public hearings. I think I represent a big part of that's Navajo Strip, and I know there's some people that probably don't agree with all the things that have been done, and I think it's important that they get to hear what's happening, not just their leader making decision, but the people, and I represent the people, and so I think it's important that we have, after, you know, we do their initial process, whatever, that we have some public hearing, just to be able to understand what's going to happen. And anyway,
well, not all of the sections being traded out of Bears Ears are going to be in the northern part of the county. There are some that are around Blanding and around the mill.
There's some in Bluff.
Yeah, some. There are some that are
sorry.
Blanding.
I'll just check and make sure
He's recording me. So, you know, but there's a big block that will be in an area where geologists have determined that there's the potential for mineral development. This county's always been an extractive county, you know, for the last 100 years, you know, extracting minerals and raising the value of the assessed value of the county, which gives us more money. But so we want to see some mineral development in the appropriate areas in the county that don't conflict with cultural resources. So that was one thing that both BLM, Sitla, and the county we're all on the same page about. Is not.
Yeah, I like the explanation because I couldn't figure out why those trade land were in the north part.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand why not.
Yeah.
Some in the south.
Well, it's something that we've got to be sensitive about is cultural resource, and I think the county is sensitive about that. We just need to direct the extractive people to the right area rather than have them focusing on things in the southern part of the county down around Bluff and so forth. We need to focus a little bit more up in this northern area where they're not going to have conflicts with cultural resources.
Thank you.
Nick?
I might just say a few words, and I may not be hearing everything that was said, and maybe this has been mentioned.
I guess we need
and not to be a negative or a naysayer, but I think some of the things you need to hear is some of the reality of the situation. And Bruce, you asked the question, if those state sections in the monument become BLM managed, would that affect the grazing? And I'm not sure what Jake said. I think you still said they're subject, even though they're recognized it, grazing is recognized in the proclamation as a valid use. It is still subject to that caveat that it cannot affect the monument objects and values that are there. Now, I think just the fact that these lands now have a national monument designation put on them, that creates a little different scenario. It's not going to be, it may not be business as usual, say for grazing, because you have this proclamation with guidelines that are given there, and BLM is mandated to manage for that. So there could be some conflicts that may develop. The other thing that comes into play here is, I think it was the 5 tribes in their agreement or memorandum with BLM did call out and recognize grazing as a threat to, I don't remember if it was worded as cultural resources or monument values and objects. So there will be tribal interest and input. And of course, the tribes will be given, I'd say, more say in this. What's the term? Is it co-management, or is there another one that you?
Yeah, it's we assigned an agreement with 5 tribal nations as part of the presidential proclamation that created the Bears Ears Commission, and so it's called a cooperative management agreement. So we cooperatively manage Bears Ears with them.
So I'm just bringing those out. Those will be other considerations that BLM will have to consider in the management of not only grazing but other uses also in that monument area.
So Nick, do you see if a section was traded out, and it used to be a Sitla section, and it's now a BLM section, if there's a conflict, then is BLM going to go in and fence that section so that the grazing doesn't affect that particular section?
Well, that would be up to BLM to decide.
JK's like, I don't know.
I
think
probably shouldn't.
There's over
guess on
100
that.
sections, so we got 4 miles around each section, so that's 400 miles of fence you'd have to build.
Yeah, we're not going to fence off entire sections. I think some of this will be addressed, and Nick will probably see some of this next week. And if you guys review the draft alternatives as well, I think there's some language in there about acquired lands in anticipation for some of these land exchanges to happen. And so,
well, Senator Lee's going to have a bill that addresses some of this stuff, and it'll be interesting to see what his bill says about the trade, whether he tries to protect the ranching interests.
Yeah.
And
we will see what the language says, and as the BLM,
because I know he's heard from a lot of ranchers about not wanting to lose their grazing rights on BLM, where the trade goes out, then BLM own all the land.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I think in short, I think in general, acquired lands kind of take on the management that's existing around it already. So
the other thing I wanted to get your take on too, we're an extractive county, and we support extraction in this county. If it's done in a proper way, not to harm the cultural resources or not to harm anything. We support, generally, we support what Lisbon Valley Copper Mine's doing. And I know they've been to you with their plan for a USDA loan. I don't know if they ask you for a letter of support. They're trying to get a loan so they can expand their operation with this in situ process. But we support them, and we generally support what's happening at the mill and blending as well. I don't know, Jamie might have some concerns. I don't know. Do you want to?
You're talking about the White Mesa Mill? Is that what you're talking about?
White Mesa Mill.
I'll wait till my time to comment, but keep the conversation going. Okay. I do have a couple of comments though.
Okay. So, anyway, that's my go and blow for today.
Thanks, Bruce.
Sylvia or
I
Jamie,
think
do you want to say anything to him at this point?
No, I welcome you. You're in a tough situation. Sometimes you can't please everybody. Sometimes we can. But we do represent the people, and feel like voicing. I had gone through with that organization where we made change take over, and we had promise and things in writing, and quickly things change. And so because of that, I do have concern that things, when they start being implemented and as time go by, they may change. And so, but thank you, time, and this is a good place to raise a family. We came here many, many years ago to San Juan County with my children, and we raised a family here, and it's been a good thing for us. So,
thank you.
Nice to get to know you.
Anything?
Well, I'd like to begin by saying it's nice to meet you, Jake. Thank you for the information. I find it valuable because this is actually my introductory in regards to the Bears Ears, and probably my real in-depth exposure to BLM, other than the time I was out there collecting wood, I think near Bears Ears. There was piles of wood alongside the road, and I was like, I struck out right on. There's wood here that I can use. So I loaded it up. Didn't realize there's restrictions there, but put it in my truck and kind of got in trouble. And so that just kind of shows you some of the limited understanding about a lot of us from the reservation in regards to rules and regulations, when all we want to do is warm our homes and get our sweat lodges going so we can have our ceremonies. So, but I find it I admire the initiative and minding cultural resources. I think that is important. But I know that the history behind Bears Ears created a division that both Sylvia and I want to bring the community back together on, and I think that responsibility will lie upon us as leaders, because we've got some work to do in educating ourselves, and you did a great job of highlighting some important things here. You highlighted the 2016, 2017, and then the October proclamation, the presidential proclamation, and those are documents that we probably need to really study and read into. But I have the same sentiment as Commissioner Adams. We need to find ways to replace the resources. I think a lot of the community feel that the resources, the investments that were there are kind of pulled away. And so we're trying to figure out ways to, I guess you can say, replace those resources that used to be there. And so I think that's the next step, is focusing on that. I do know Council Delegate Curtis Yanito. He's just recently took office. He has been appointed to I think it's the Bears Ears Commission.
Yes.
Yeah, I think now Nation President Bo Nygren had appointed him. So I imagine those conversations will continue.
Yep, I've been in meetings with him already. So.
And I think we'd like to kind of come in and listen in whenever you have those meetings, to help support our education and getting to know what the process is, where it's moving, so that we're able to articulate some of the changes. Because when we're not at the table, there's questions out there that we're not able to answer. So yeah, I think just letting us know when those meetings are would help us. And I think the important part is we as leaders educating ourselves, and then being able to share the information and making public comment part of the process, I think is going to be valuable moving forward. I'll leave my comments at that. And there is hot chocolate there. It's probably warm chocolate, but that's they call it the cup of sunshine. There's sprinkles in there.
Where's it from?
That's his good disposition. He had that every morning. Hot
Destination
chocolate.
Awaken blending. So
Okay.
please help yourselves to it. So I feel good about spreading cups of sunshine on it.
I like
Stay cold, wet morning. So.
And there's a shop in Blandon. They even name a chocolate cup after him. I don't know, what is the name of your chocolate cup? Anyway, because he shop there about.
Well, I appreciate it, Commissioner Harvey. Thank you for your comments.
Maybe while we've got a minute, we're not in a hurry, are we?
Not at all. I've got another hour.
I'd like to have Nick maybe take a minute and explain RS 2477 roads and that issue for the county, and maybe Jake, between you and Nick, and give us a little history lesson on what RS 2477 roads are and why they're important, maybe.
Well, I'm not sure how well I can explain that. The RS, the revised statute 2477, I believe was an 1866 statute that was developed at the time in the United States to allow probably more for westward expansion, and it would recognize any route that was used at that time as a so-called highway, which is a fairly broad definition of what maybe that route was at the time, whether that was a well-used road or some type of a path or trail that may have been used at the time that may have been considered as a highway. So Utah in particular, and I'm not sure about other western states, have put great emphasis on this RS 2477 authority in making claims, the state claims as well as county claims, to these highways within the counties, in our county for instance. And the state and the county have filed RS 2477 claims for these roads or highways, and that's, I'm not even up on that as far as the litigation goes, but I believe the county has an RS 2477 claim on most, if not nearly all, of the roads and even some of the trails in San Juan County.
And some of them are just 2 tracks, right?
That's correct.
They're not maintained.
2 tracks. Now, I know there's criticism that, well, the county and the state even claims cow paths, cow trails and horse trails. I don't know that that's the case, but they probably do get down to what we would commonly refer to as a 2-track route that may have just been formed by vehicles traveling from one point to another, and over time that's developed a route or a 2-track trail or road, whatever you want to call it. So the county does have those RS 2477 claims in effect. And that's, I guess, a co-claim with the state of Utah for the right to use and claim those roads. And as I said, that's still to be resolved in the courts. And the issue will come to a head possibly when the Bears Ears Travel Management Plan is developed. After the Bears Ears Plan, I think that's still the sequence. Yeah. So there will be certain elements of the public that may want to close or limit access on some of these RS 2477 claimed routes, and that's where the county and the state would get involved in a conflict.
Nick, what's the significance of 1976?
1976 was the passage of the Federal Land Policy Management Act, which is basically referred to as BLM's Organic Act. And prior to that time, BLM was subject to, I don't remember what it was called, whether it was the general land laws or something else, whereas a lot of lands were basically subject to being disposed of. The public would lay claim, homesteads or other things. The 1976 Organic Act gave BLM the authority to, I believe, retain federal ownership of these lands, and some of the homestead laws, I think, were rescinded, is that correct, at that time? So they were no longer would apply. So the
But when it comes to RS 2477, that's a significant year date because they look at any roads that have witnesses or people who've traveled those roads prior to 76 to help justify the claims or something.
And Jake, was it in fact that when Flipman was passed, that basically overrode the RS 2477 such that a road had to be either constructed or in use prior to 1976 to qualify as an RS 2477.
Right.
I don't know, that's a roundabout.
So the state has been traveling around counties, getting testimony from witnesses who traveled those roads prior to 1976 and codifying the fact that they were in use by the public prior to FLIPMA so that they can justify their claim that is a significant road to the county and the state. Every road in the state of Utah is half owned by the county and half owned by the state, or claimed anyway. I don't know if the owned is the proper word, but the state has an interest in every road that the county has an interest in.
And as we proceed with this kind of arrangement with bear seers and things like that, those roads are important so they'll stay open. Is that one of the reasons why they're so important? Sometimes you hear hearsay, especially as I travel, chapters down south, and there's comments where people say, well, I can't go get wood because the road is closed, and sometimes I think it happened because owner or whoever managed the land decide to put a fence, and so I imagine how it would affect people getting wood if roads start getting closed. So those roads are important. Thank you for educating us on that.
Yeah.
Jake, you want to incriminate yourself and say anything about RS 2477?
As you could tell, it's a complex, history and legality stuff that I won't claim to be an expert in, and it's essentially in the hands of the courts right now, and so the BLM's not, at a local level. That's there's other people dealing with that.
You did not incriminate yourself. Good answer.
But I will say,
Nick has a comment.
Well, I'm just going to say, and Jake, maybe you're going to say it too, but when BLM does a plan, whether it's a travel plan or anything else that could be construed as affecting that RS 2477 claim, there's generally a disclaimer in that plan stating that these decisions will have no effect on the RS 2477 claims and future court action.
There you go.
As to how that's going to be resolved. So it's there, that RS 2477 is kind of hanging over here, but the agency still goes forward to implement certain plans, which may or may not eventually affect that RS 2477 situation. So.
Now there's 2-track roads all over this county because of minerals. All these companies going out and exploring for minerals and drilling, and even some of them built roads into mines and so forth. So I think I have in my mind, do we have 3,000 miles of RS 2477 in the county?
Oh boy, I don't know that figure. I can't remember it.
It's a lot.
I think it's possible. I'm not going to say I really know, but there are a lot of roads in San Juan County, and the the Reg Johnson's office, what's it called?
Political.
Yeah,
Flipco are sending their attorneys down again this spring to interview people who might have knowledge so that they can get those interviews in the system. So I don't know.
We'll have them down here in a couple weeks to.
Are they
present.
coming down in a
Yeah.
couple weeks?
I have a question, nothing to do with. Some of us were in a meeting in Emery County, and there was lots of organization there, and I don't remember all the acronyms, but most of the agencies were there. They were talking about lack of personnel. They cannot find people to for their
For
jobs.
hiring, yeah.
Yeah, hi. I don't know if you guys are having that kind of issue, but it'd be nice for us to know so we can spread the word around in case some people may be looking for jobs, so we can do
Yeah.
that. So
We definitely struggle, recruiting to small communities,
because of housing and different
housing and
different-
just
no
the
shopping
remoteness
places.
of it, and so
Qualifications. Yeah.
So
I think we're exploring new ways of, because a lot of times how it's been done in the past is jobs were advertised and it was kind of, if you work for the government you can apply for this job, and so one thing I'm trying to do here is to make it available, all these opportunities to the public in general. So as long as they can show that they're qualified for these jobs, they can apply. And so when these jobs come out, we work with USU Blanding and a whole bunch of other organizations to kind of get the word out. But yeah, we can share
Yeah,
some of
so
those
if you
with you
wanna-
all as well.
you can send us a message and we can figure out. Sometimes word of mouth works really good too. You hear people
Mm-hmm.
saying they're looking for a job, and maybe we
still are
can
people.
direct them.
They still are staff, and so we don't want to spread the word of mouth.
Sylvia wants to know if you've got anything for retired school teachers.
Or retired
We don't
commissioners.
want to take it.
Retired commissioners.
Oh no for the staff.
They've
No.
done that in the past, and
No.
we've stole
I
theirs.
was just thinking
so
about. I was
we-
just thinking
we go
people
back and
down
forth.
south and they may need a job.
Yeah, we
Mac
can
is thinking, oh no, don't.
we can work with you on
we
some.
want to keep public access to all of the lands in the county that are reasonable.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to mention about roads was, what's called a travel plan. It's kind of like, it's the system of routes that exists that the BLM recognizes as these are the roads that are open and available to the public. So we go through a pretty lengthy process to do that, and the county is heavily involved in those processes. But the travel plan that exists now has been in place at least since 2008, when we created the 2008 management plan for the Monticello field office. And so that is kind of the system of routes that we use, as these are the routes that are open for people to use. There potentially could be some seasonal limitations or other limitations on those, but a lot of times what happens is, like the wood cutting has been brought up, a lot of times there are roads that are created out on the landscape where maybe somebody wanted to get a little further in to go get some wood, and then the next person comes and they see those tracks and they drive back there, and so over time some of these what look like roads, they look like roads, and so people think that they're roads, but in fact they're not a designated route that should be open on our plan. So we find ourselves in these situations where maybe some people think that, oh, the BLM's out here closing roads, but they were never supposed to have been a road in the first place. And so we find ourselves in those situations where, as the BLM, we need to come and protect some of the resources that, they may be driving over cultural resources and may not even be knowing it, or driving into a wilderness study area and may not be knowing it. And so those are some scenarios that do happen on the landscape where we're not actually closing a designated road. It's just a road that was created by the public to access different areas where they were hoping to get to. And so those are situations that we do face. And, I work with our park rangers and law enforcement, and we work with the sheriff's office to make sure, we have all of our employees have these tablets that they take out, and it has maps on there that shows all the roads that are open in our travel plan. And so if that is if they see something that's not, shouldn't be there on the ground, then they can go in there and try to rehabilitate that a little bit. But if it is an open route, then that is not something that they are
Awesome.
allowed to go and close. So how much time do we have, Mac? I don't know. Another hour.
Yeah.
Do we have a minute?
Tammy needs 5 minutes, right?
Can I introduce Orlando Cortez? You know, Bears Ears National Monument, it's an interesting, unique situation. So the BLM, we manage 1.1 million acres. I said the Forest Service manages a couple 100,000 acres of it. So, you know, as two federal agencies, we jointly manage Bears Ears National Monument. And then I've mentioned as well that we have this agreement, a cooperative management agreement with 5 tribal nations that were identified by the president in the proclamation. And there's some other entities as well. So we have what's called the Monument Advisory Committee, which is a 15-member committee that's representative of, there's various representations. So it's local landowners, grazing permittees, recreation, tribal interests, and a handful of other state, and then local government.
I used to sit on that board chair, but
Yeah,
they kicked me off.
wasn't me. So it's a 15-member committee that's supposed to be representative of kind of some local voices on that committee. And our next meeting we're striving for is in June, and I think it's June 22nd. These are public meetings. We can't just call a meeting with the advisory committee. We have to go through a process and get it published in what's called the Federal Register, so that the public nationwide knows about these meetings that we're having.
Major effort.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. And so right now it's planned for June 22nd, and it's going to be a field trip. And so some more details will come out about that, but you all are welcome to join and come with the advisory committee.
Information when you have the final details.
Yep.
Then we might want to go on that.
So, but with that said, I wanted to introduce Orlando because, we work closely in the management of Bears Ears National Monument, and it's just another layer of the complexity here in public land management in the county. So I'll give Orlando just a little bit of time, and I'll sit down unless you guys have anything else for BLM.
No, Orlando's been well behaved up to this point.
So Orlando Cortez, I'm the Deputy District Ranger for Moab and Monticello for the Forest Service. I started November 6th, but I did a detail, which is a temporary assignment as the Deputy District Ranger from April through August. So a little bit of background on myself. I'm from Aztec, New Mexico. My mom, she comes from a place called Baclabato in New Mexico off the Navajo reservation. That's spent a lot of my childhood there. My dad is from old land grant country in northern New Mexico. He's Hispanic, from Cuesta. So northern New Mexico, raised in the middle, family on both sides. I've worked in a multitude of different forests. Started in the Medicine Bow Route National Forest in northern Colorado. Worked a long time on the Cibola out of Grants, New Mexico. Most recently, and I did about half a year or more on the Carson National Forest in Canjilon, New Mexico. Worked on the Nez Perce tribe, on the Nez Perce National Forest, and Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest in north central Idaho. And most recently, I'm coming from the Lincoln National Forest out of Alamogordo, New Mexico, or Cloudcroft, New Mexico. My background's in rangeland management. So this position as Deputy District Ranger is fairly new. I'm enjoying it. It's different from just managing permits, monitoring, and doing improvements, getting to see a whole many different programs, from hydrology, fire, things I'm not so familiar with, working with wildlife, every botanist, engineering. So it's big, it's new, and I like it, along with range. The Commissioner Jamie, you brought up wood hauling. I just want to give you guys an update. You'll probably see it on social media soon. With the National Forest Foundation, created a program called Wood for Life. other forests have been participating in it. Southern Utah, led by Brian Trick and Lydia Zawada, are engaged the Forest Service and BLM, and we're working together. We're very preliminary. We're just kind of startup. We're working together to begin providing wood and participating in the Wood for Life program. Most recently, this Friday, I sent out an email to BLM and all of our partners that are trying to participate to engage the tribes, for our tribal liaison to begin engaging the tribes and figuring out who we're going to provide that wood to meet tribal need. As of right now, it's our ideas are doing our CEs, our restoration projects, not mulching that wood, but to provide what's usable. Take that to a wood bank, store it, and let it cure, and get that to people in need, with the focus on our tribal entities. Do you guys have any questions? Or
Of course. If you come before the commission, we're going to grill you. So, was it Forest Service or BLM that did the mastication process out by Devil's Canyon?
BLM, I believe.
Was that you guys? Yeah, I like that. Any PJ you can get rid of, I'm fully supportive of that. A couple of years ago, the people in the Salt Lake area had a windstorm, and they had a lot of trees that were falling down, and I'm not sure how it happened, but they decided, rather than dispose of those trees up there, they're going to load them on semis and haul them to the reservation. I'm not sure whether they hauled them to Ojeto or Montezuma Creek or what, but and there was a semi after semi going through town and dropped that wood off and allowed the Navajo people to come and pick it up. I don't know if that's anything possible for the Forest Service. I think if Forest Service wanted to pick up a lot of deadfall up in North Creek and haul it to the reservation, that would be a great idea. But that's a tough place to go get wood up there. But I'm sure there's places. I don't know if you have thought of that. That's all I'm saying is.
We're working through it. So part of that would be contracting, but we don't know if we can get a big enough contractor to acquire that wood. So we're looking more at hand crews. So we had a meeting a couple weeks ago, trying to get Chish for Che, which is wood for grandfather. They're a group where they're hand crew, where they would be one of our mechanisms. If they're able to make it out here. Another one is utilizing a group we already utilize is Ancestral Lands Corps. And then, or just when we do mastication projects, if we have good wood, just piling it and having those hand crews load it up, take it, and then we establishing wood banks. So we have a local, I think it's Blue Mountain something here in I think it's Monticello and Blanding, and then we have another wood bank. No, it's Oh, I can get back with you on that.
Right.
Yeah.
Meat shop.
We have another wood bank through the state office, state of Utah DNR. It's FFSL, Forestry, Fires, and State Lands. They have a wood bank already established in Moab. So we have two. We would like to see more wood banks. The more, the better. And then we're still, again, this is all preliminary. We're having meetings. We're trying to figure out how we're going to get over these hurdles. One of them being transportation. Once we get them in the wood bank, how do we get them to the tribes?
Yeah.
One option, the easiest option, is just to allow them to come in to Moab or Blanding or wherever the wood banks are and say, just pick up a truckload. But we understand that some of them.
I think when they did that thing out of Salt Lake, I think that was all volunteer.
Yeah.
I think the truck drivers volunteered their trucks, paid their own fuel. When it comes to trying to help Native American people with resources and stuff. Man, I think people are pretty generous with their time and their resources and stuff. I don't know. You know, I know there's a lot of hurdles for Forest Service and BLM when it comes to those kind of things, but boy, that was impressive when they hauled all that wood down to the reservation, wasn't it?
Yeah, so we're looking to participate. We're hoping that we can implement something this fall, but even if it takes till next spring, at least once we have it established, we'll have a mechanism to participate in the Wood for Life program. Currently, the Coquihino National Forest, the San Juan National Forest, and I believe a forest in Idaho are currently participants in the Wood for Life program. So we want to get Southern Utah through the state and Forest Service and BLM also participating in that program and providing wood.
I don't know if this is possible,
Good
but
morning.
even having an area within the forest where wood can be piled up. And I think with the way the economy is, like a natural gas, for us, double our monthly bill. And I'm sure that lots of people are hurting with heating their homes in all our areas in San Juan County. So it'd be nice if it's a pile where people come with a truck and load their own stuff and take it home. The ones that need it delivered, maybe other things can be done, but I think it'd be nice if anybody that needs wood, they just get that from the pile. And I don't know if that's possible, but one day we got diverted because of a fire. We ended up going the long way to Arizona, and I was looking at all the trees that were piled down. I thought maybe if we could just get the National Guard come and chop out those and put in a big pile. But anyway, but there's something there.
So it is possible. We just lost our forester. I don't think BLM has a forester, and so in the different forests I've been on, we used to do that, make piles, and anyone, they just have to get a permit, can come and hit those piles and fill up their truck and meet their permit needs, and it's piled there for them. The Wood for Life focuses on tribal entities, but we still offer permits to anyone in the public. And we can work with, if there's a need, we can work with establishing like permitted piles for everyone to use too. A lot of what we're focused on with our mastication, which were mastication projects or rehab projects for vegetation, the wood is not big in volume, so we're talking like low diameter. So it's not a whole lot right now. And then right now we're working outside of Bears Ears National Monument. So part of the very eastern part of the Forest Service is where we're looking at doing these projects. Being that we haven't finished a plan and we don't have interim guidance on how to do. We're getting it. We're through the plan. We'll have it, but we still can do management. But we're focused on all of our management actions outside of the monument until we get that plan in place. So, but we can do it in Moab for the Forest Service. BLM has areas that I'm sure are outside. I think you do. They're outside the monument. So our focus is outside the monument. We can go into the monument later, but we kind of want the plan in place before we go look at bigger projects. And without a forester, it's hard to get those bigger trees down through contracting. And because you have to, the way the forestry works is, at least in the prelim, is we need to get a crew out there of specialists that mark the trees for the contractor. And they look at, diseased trees, what meets that restoration need, and make sure they're not wildlife trees, like they don't have certain raptors in them, things like that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Jamie?
I just wanted to comment that I had Orlando for the information. I didn't know you understand and speak some Denebaza. So, Nejone, just
I
wanted
understood
to highlight some of the chapters in the Utah strip. There's 7 There's Tisnasbus, white skin and blue-eyed brothers call them Technos post, but we call it Tisnasbus. And then down to Aneth, Red Mesa, Mexican Water, Denahatso or Denahotso, well, Jato and Navajo Mountain. But I think should you establish a plan and you do announce the wood piles, I think Utah Navajo Trust Fund would be a great place to present that, because they have advisory committee members that work directly with the chapters, and it would mitigate a lot of the chaos. Because then there would be an entity who would help support planning. I know the board of trustees with the Utah Navajo Trust Fund, they come down on an annual basis and they haul wood out to, I think this year they did Navajo Mountain. And so that's just maybe a resource you can look to, is the Utah Navajo Trust Fund, who works with all the 7 chapters. Love to have you come when you do have a plan prepared to share that information, and then I know that the chapters would be very thrilled to know that there is an accessible wood bank that the elders might be able to access.
Yeah, thank you. We want to bring people in, tribal. I'm pretty sure Navajo is going to be the primary, because talking with some of you Mountain Youth, a lot of them are using natural gas. So I'm in-lawed over on Black Mesa, technically Kitsili. I don't know if you're familiar with that area. My kids are enrolled in school there. Well, I'm in transition because the housing market. So I go through all those areas: Denahotso, I think it's White Rock, Mexican Water, and then I'm Baclavato's right next to Tisnasbus. So I thank you. I'll pass that on to our tribal liaison to make those contacts, or I'm kind of getting in trouble for making contact myself, but because we have a person that does that. So thank you, and we'll start bringing them in. We want them in as participants in our meetings, even though we're preliminary. That way, we're all moving at the same pace, and we're all, we know what we need to provide and the mechanisms that are going to meet that need the best. So thank you.
Well, Mac,
Orlando, will you give my greetings to Michael Englehart?
Yes,
He's a good friend.
I will do. Thank you, guys.
I told you I needed 5 or 10 minutes to tell you an hour later, but I wanted to give you guys my
That's awesome.
cards if you need to reach out.
I can give you. I have some somewhere.
But thank you.
Thanks.
For your time.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That was good.
Okay, Tammy, are you going to give us a presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
I only need 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's what he said too.
No, I'm teasing. I'll take more than 5 or 10 minutes, but we will get through this. Thank you, commissioners, for having me come. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself and let you guys know what San Juan Counseling is doing, kind of what we're about. So this presentation I'm going to give to you guys is like just a really big basic overview. I'm going to try to not get into the weeds too much. So, but if you guys at any time have any questions, just let me know. How do I move this on?
Click on the presentation and then.
Aha. Right there. Do I need to let Grant in?
Yeah, go ahead and let Grant in, please. Thank you. And then you can minimize that too if you want. It's out of your way. You're awesome. Thank
There you go.
so much.
Okay, who we are, San Juan Counseling. So our real technical name is San Juan Mental Health Substance Abuse Special Service District. We are a special service district of San Juan County. We were established in 1998 by a resolution from the county commissioners at that time. Before then, we were part of the state. Before then, we were part of Four Corners Behavioral Health. It's just kind of part of our history. And here we are today. We are the local behavioral health authority, also called the local mental health authority. You guys may or may not have heard that term. That's a term that the legislature and a lot of state people like to throw around. We have oversight by the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health. They are part of the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. They're a newly formed office a couple years ago with the merging of Health and Human Services. They used to be the division, now they're the office. So it's really hard for me to catch up to speed. Sometimes I still say the division when it really should be the office. It just to confuse us all. We follow a couple Utah codes. Well, we have to follow all of the Utah codes, but there's two specific Utah codes that kind of talk about what we are. Title 17, Chapter 43, that's the Local Human Service Act, and it talks about the Local Substance Abuse Authority, and the Local Mental Health Authority kind of talks about how we should be created, and talks about our responsibilities and what we should do with our public funds. And the bigger act, Title 62A, Chapter 15, that's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Act. It's a pretty long act that gets more into depth with what we do and what our responsibilities are. And our offices are licensed by the Department of Licensing. That's under the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. All right, what we do. So basically, we provide behavioral health services for both mental health and substance use disorders. We provide outpatient services, evaluations, individual therapy, group therapy, family therapy. We also have a 24-hour crisis response. We use our MCOT team, which is a mobile crisis outreach team, for 16 hours of the day. And then for the other time, we have a therapist that is on call 24 hours. Our MCOT team is a new program in the last 3 years, to where we have 2 team members that go out into the community, to the hospitals, to whoever calls them, to assess needs, to meet any mental health crises that arise. We also provide medication management for psychiatric needs. We have that in-house. We provide inpatient and residential on a subcontract basis, and none of those are in the county. There are no inpatient or residential facilities inside the county. We do psychosocial rehabilitation and case management, which is our day treatment services, and those are services that are for more severe mental illness, to where we work with community members to keep them safe in the community and as healthy as they can be. We have a drug court program which works with individuals that have substance use disorders and are in the criminal justice system. Our drug court program works with the judge, the county attorney, and the sheriff's office, and it's actually a really successful program. We've seen some real good success over the years with this program. So, and we manage the prepaid Medicaid program in San Juan County. I'll talk about that a little more later. And we provide prevention services for substance use and suicide. And most of that is through the SJC PAC. Where are we located? So we are located all across the county. Our main office is in Blanding. It's the San Juan Health Building, that nice building that we share with public health and with the clinic. Thanks to Bruce. Bruce was a big part of getting that building going and getting us funding for it. We got some grant funding from CIB, and there's also a loan portion of it through the CIB, but it's been a really good asset to have, and it's been a really good thing.
A good partnership between 3 entities.
Yeah, it's been a really, really good thing for us.
That's one of the reasons the CIB was willing to fund it, because of the partnership between the 3 entities.
Yeah, and we've been in it for 5 years now, And it's been a really good.
It's well used building.
Yeah.
I mean, you see always cars and always things going on there in that building.
Yeah.
It was built by a local contractor.
That's good.
Yep, it was. Our other facilities, we have what we call Gateway. It's our blending day treatment facility. It's actually a house that's pretty close to our main building that we actually got CIB funding for the loan on that a couple years ago. And we repurposed it to make it into a day treatment facility. We have a location down in Montezuma Creek that we use for day treatment. And we also have one in Mexican Hat that we use for day treatment part-time. That one has been really kind of slow getting going for several reasons. And then we have just secured an office here in Monticello that we're opening soon. It'll just be part-time. We'll have some outpatient services there. I'm just working on licensing and all that good stuff. So probably in the next month or two, we'll be working out of there a little bit. This is our organizational chart. I know it's really small, so it's hard to read. But at the top, because we are the local mental health and local substance abuse authority, it is underneath you guys, San Juan County Commission. And so then we have our board of directors. Currently, we have Lynn Stevens, Rebecca Bonali, Steve Jensen, Ned Krutsky, and Ann Austin on our board. And then underneath them is me as the executive director. And then all of our other workers. I've got Aaron here with me today. He is our clinical director, and he is over all things clinical at San Juan Counseling. You guys want to look at that for a minute? You guys want me to send you an email with all those names on it?
So, Aaron, we have another Duke in the county. Do you have any relationship?
My uncle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be darned.
We have the same male pattern boldness. Like Gene.
There you go.
Yes, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Steve is my uncle.
I'll be darned. Well, he's a good man, so I'm sure you're.
If I pattern my ways after him, I will one day become a good man.
There you go. I'd like to become a good man like him too.
Aaron is a good man. We are so very lucky to have him. So this is just a pie chart of our revenue in 2022. I wanted to show this to you guys to see, so you could see where most of our funding comes from. The biggest piece of the pie, that 49%, it comes from Medicaid. It's a little under $1.9 million a year that we get from Medicaid. That's how we provide most of our services. 43%, it's about 1.6 million. That comes from our state and federal contracts. And then the blue ones, insurance, private pay. When people come in, we bill their insurance. The red one that is 3%, that is the county match money that I get from you guys. So it's a small amount, and I'll talk about this later, about how we leverage the local funds that you guys give to provide services. And then the 2% is just other things. We have a little bit of rental income, interest income, and the opioid settlement money I put in there too. So that's how that all breaks down. So our revenues, this is our federal, state, and local contracts. We have 30 different funding sources. So this allocation letter comes to one of you guys, I believe. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but we get an allocation letter every year, and then they update it throughout the year because they keep changing our funding. But I have 30 different funding sources on my allocation letter. Mm-hmm. Okay. This comes from the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health. On it, it tells me all the different things that I get funding for. There's all these different categories and all these different ways that I can use my funding. All of my funding on my state and federal contracts are expense-based. I have to spend the money to get the money. Just because it says I'm getting $1 million in mental health doesn't mean I'm actually going to get $1 million. I actually have to have the expenses to get that money. And they all have limited things I can do with them. Some of them they're very specific that I can only use for like peer support or prevention, or they all have their own funny little things of requirements attached to them. Any of the general funds for state funds that I get on here, the county is required to match at 20%. So that is the match that I ask from you guys, at the required 20% match. And I've highlighted it on this sheet. So in mental health, there's only 4 of my areas that require match, and my match requirement for fiscal year 23 on the mental health side is $64,591, and on the substance use side it's $26,307. The requirement, if you're interested, that is in that Title 17 code. And just to kind of give you an example of how we leverage, if the county were to cut my funding just by $15,000, if the county came and said, we don't have the funding, we're going to cut you by $15,000. Because the state funding requires a match, if I didn't get that match, then the state wouldn't give me that money. So that amount would be $75,000 that the state wouldn't give me. And because of my Medicaid contract, I'm required to match my Medicaid by 30%. So if I didn't have the county $15,000, the state $70,000, then I couldn't get $300,000 out of Medicaid dollars. So that $15,000 it means I'm leveraging $375,000 between state and Medicaid dollars, which equates to services to our community members. So I think the bang for the buck that you guys are putting into mental health, it's there. And there are additional restrictions on our federal funds. We can't use them for certain things like housing and Medicaid match and capital improvements.
Let me ask you a question real quick because I'll forget it.
Yep.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Your county amounts were mental health 64.5, and then substance abuse was 26. That's about 90,000.
Mm-hmm.
Does the 15,000 come out of that 90, or is it in addition to the 90?
No, that comes out of the 90.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Isn't there 2 different programs? One's for the day treatment center agreement, and then you have the mental health component? Or am I reading that wrong?
Yeah, you're reading that wrong.
Okay, so the requirement for the county match is all of that, not necessarily, because doesn't the county also pay for the treatment portion of the day treatment center? Or is it just the operations in general?
What are you talking about?
So you have the treatment center in Blanding, and that I read somewhere in your past emails where the county committed to also helping fund that.
So the county also committed to fund additional Medicaid match.
Okay, maybe that's where I'm reading it.
Yeah, and so several years ago, it was in 2013 when we became capitated and we knew our Medicaid rates were going to go up, which means also our Medicaid match was going to go up. So we came to the county and said, we want to do this. This will bring more services to the county, but it's going to cost a lot more money. And there were probably 4 or 5 years that the county had to overmatch what the required 20% was in order for us to meet our Medicaid match. Okay. The last several years, though, because we've gotten more state funding and I can use that state funding to make my Medicaid match, I've not asked it of you guys.
Okay. And so that's not included in here. Okay. I was just reading through the trail trying to figure out how.
Yeah. So what's included, and that's just a scenario of if the county did not match the required 20%, we would lose state funding and then we would lose Medicaid funding.
Awesome. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah. Okay, and then our other funding sources, our prepaid Medicaid, which I said is my biggest bucket, 49%. It's also called capitation, and it's a managed care model. Back in 2013, when we went capitated, we knew we couldn't do it by ourselves. We're a very small agency, and starting a managed care plan has a lot of things that come with it, a lot of administrative oversight, a lot of policies, just a lot of stuff we knew we could not do. So we did what's called subcapitation with Northeastern Counseling Center. So we have a contract with Northeastern Counseling Center. They're out of Vernal and Roosevelt. We have a really good working relationship with them. They help us out a lot on everything. And so they receive the Medicaid dollars, and then they pass it down to us what our amount is for San Juan County. But they help with the oversight and with all the policies and all that fun stuff.
The management part.
Yes, that we could not do by ourselves. It's been a really good partnership, and it's really benefited San Juan Counseling. So the money that comes from prepaid mental health, we get just a monthly amount. It's a set amount. With that amount, we need to meet the needs of our community, of the Medicaid members. Part of that is we pay for inpatient hospitalizations, and we pay for residentials. And like I said, it requires a 30% match from state and local sources. It's very kind of limited to what dollars I can use for match. It has to be generally appropriated state or local dollars. We also have a little piece of our Medicaid is fee-for-service that doesn't have as many restrictions on it. If somebody comes in with a certain type of Medicaid, we just bill it and we get payment back for that service. The same for private insurance and private pay. We have a sliding fee scale for community members who can't afford to pay the full amount. And then I talked about our other revenue, which is just a little bit of interest, rental income, and the opioid funds. And this is just showing you the revenue trends over the last 5 years. This is the income that we have received. And you can see our contracts and our Medicaid payments have been steadily increasing, which is good. Our insurance, our county and other, has been relatively flat. We haven't seen huge increases in those, but we have seen increases in our contracts and our Medicaid. And then this is just a real quick overview of our revenue versus expenses. We are an enterprise fund, so we do show a profit and a loss, or a loss every year. We always want to show a profit if we can, but we're like any other business. We have good years, we have bad years. 5 years ago, we were kind of struggling. Our expenses were higher than our revenues. Did that for a couple years. We were able to change it, turn it around. Our revenues are higher than our expenses the last couple years. And I do need to say, for 2022, that's not an audited number. So it could change a little bit once my audit is final. And like I said, any profit that we get put into savings to help for the years that we don't have profits. Over the last 5 years, this is an overview of our mental health clients that we have served. The bottom green part is our adults. The top blue part is the youth. And so you can see in 2018, we were about at 700 clients total. It stayed the same in about 2019 to 2020. We had a big increase. And this is for fiscal year first, so it's June to July. And we all know what happened in 2020 in March. So our services kind of dropped off in fiscal year 21. We lost some employees unexpectedly, and we have had real serious hiring issues over the last couple years. So our service numbers did decrease from 21 and 22. The good news is we have jumped over that hurdle and we are back to full staff. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's been a rough couple years. But we are at full staff, so those numbers will just start increasing. And then on the substance use disorder client count, It stayed relatively flat, a little over 80 in 2018 and up to 100 in the last fiscal year. So unlike the mental health client counts, our substance use actually went up a little bit. I'm not really sure. Well, I think I know the trend for that.
Everything COVID.
Yeah. But so and I anticipate we'll just continue to see that rise every year. And I do need to say, so this is just the number of clients in substance use disorder that are actually in treatment. We have a whole lot more that we do evaluations for. They don't get counted in this count. If we just do an evaluation, it's not considered treatment. So these are the ones that are actually in treatment. And then prevention efforts. Prevention is a big part of what we do. We've got a really effective and lively coalition called SJCPAC, which stands for San Juan County Prevention Action Collaboration, I think.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's what it is. And so I just wanted to highlight a few of the things that they're doing real quickly. Recently, the last couple meetings they've had their On the Road series. Up until this last year, they've always just held their meetings in Blanding. And the last couple meetings, they went to Monument Valley. They've been to Montezuma Creek. And then I think they're going to be in Monticello tomorrow. And they're doing a mapping exercise of the different areas to kind of get community feedback of what the community feels that the needs and issues are in their area. They just finished up a community survey, and throughout the whole county, they got 240 responses, which is
good.
It's pretty good. Yeah, for our small county, and they were able to get responses from pretty much every area of the county. Is pretty good. They will post the data as soon as it's all finalized on the SJCPAC website, which is sjcpac.com. So if you're interested in seeing what those are.
What was it? I got a chance to Zoom the meeting. There was in Montezuma Creek area. It was interesting how the activity they were doing by mapping out where alcohol is and different things. It was very interesting. It'd be nice to see when it's all put together. And
yeah, to see it all compiled and
I tried to attend some of the meetings, and I want to say the amount of work that this group do serving our community is amazing. I don't think people realize that, Lynn does a really good job, and all the people that help her. It's amazing. Well, they do all the stuff to get to them.
Yeah, and that's kind of the power of this coalition, because it's really not just a Lynn. It's all the community members that come and are involved and invested and put a lot of work into it. And that's the power of the coalition. Like, no one entity and no one person can do it all and make the change, but she gets people there and gets people excited about it, and they do some great things.
And fun things too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and so I'll keep going. Like, they've just had the family mealtime contest to where they had families send in pictures of them having a mealtime together. And they're going to post those pictures on the SJCPAC website. We just received a means reduction suicide prevention grant to where we can purchase gun safes and suicide postvention kits and anything that we think can help with suicide prevention. It's a pretty big grant that we're excited about. They're working on a community partnership project, which has a lot of parents empowered messaging. I'm sure you guys have all seen those or heard those fun parents empowered commercials. They're getting ready to start a Gray Matters campaign, and Gray Matters is about marijuana use and kind of the issues that come along with that. So they're just getting ready to start that campaign. We now have prevention staff that is representing Monticello, Blanding, Montezuma Creek, and Monument Valley. I have more prevention staff on hand than I ever have in the past, and it's really, really exciting. They went to Capitol Hill Day in January, and they were able to take 18 youth from the community, and they were able to meet with Phil Lyman and do a couple other things there, and it's kind of exciting to get the youth involved and the excitement there.
You need to make sure we know when you're coming up. We'd like to come and visit with you as well. We're up there usually Tuesday through Friday.
Yeah, because I think it's like the first or second Wednesday of the session that they go up.
Yeah, we had missed him but we got pulled into that roads meeting.
Oh.
So they usually come to Yellowcake and meet with Representative Lyman.
Mm-hmm.
And we were pulled off to that state road meeting right at the same time, and they came in and presented. And so we missed them this year. Typically we see them.
Yeah, I'll make sure Lynn reaches out to you guys
And
next year.
I talked to her on
Okay.
as well. I was like, hey.
Yeah.
But it was just, we just missed each other just by that close. So a hallway away. So.
Yeah, it happens. They're also doing some parenting classes, guiding good choices and strengthening families. Parenting classes are free to community members. They don't have to be clients. It can just be anybody. And they've been working on this kindness t-shirt campaign to promote pro-social peer interaction within schools. They give out these t-shirts and then they brag it up. They've been doing it for a couple years. And their website, like I said, is sjcpac.com, where you can get a lot of good information on what they're doing. Oh, I was all tricky on this one. I'm like, where'd my words go? Okay, so we've got some new and expanded services, and I've touched on a lot of these. Our MCA, our Mobile Crisis Outreach Team, we're really still trying to promote and let people know about it. We have a peer support on staff that works with families that are going through things that need help. Our Mexican Hat Day treatment, we acquired the building in 2020 and started trying to get it going, and then COVID happened and shut everything down.
Is that the old LDS chapel?
It's the old LDS chapel. And
we were trying to figure out who the owner was.
Yeah.
Well, San Juan Foundation still currently owns it. I'm in the process of purchasing it from them.
Okay.
But because it's on BLM land, I have to work out the whole land
because
patent
they keep
thing.
saying that we had it. We went and checked with recorder, and they said no, they have it. Well, sure glad you're gonna have it.
Yeah. So we're in the process of purchasing it. It's just getting through all that fun stuff.
We'd received some complaints on the yard and the upkeep on the building there, and so there were some concerns that we had expressed from the public there. And so
right.
We were trying to figure out who's on first base there.
Yeah. And it's, as soon as we acquire it, we plan on doing some things with the yard, xeriscape, and there's not enough water there to, and we like to have as minimal maintenance as possible.
Absolutely.
Because you're looking at the maintenance staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. That's exactly it.
It's like a home. Sometimes the maid doesn't show up. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're working on increasing those services down there. We just barely started a grief support group for individuals that are going through grief and they need a little bit of extra support. We're working on increasing our drug court program. The last couple of years, our numbers have kind of been down in that program. In order to have a good, effective program, you need to have a minimal amount, and we need to bring those service numbers up. And I talked about the extended collaboration through SJCPAC. We'll keep working on that. We offer tobacco cessation groups. Anybody that's interested in quitting smoking or chewing or anything, we offer those groups. They are free of charge. You don't have to be a client, but we do offer that. We're expanding our day treatment programming, and we've also been working with MSW interns through USU to bring more workers into the area. And looking ahead in 2023, some of the things that we will be specifically working on is increasing our services and outreach. Like I said, we'll be opening up a Monticello clinic to get more services up here. We have a building in Blanding that we have retrofitted to either be a sober living or a mental health residential. We're still working on the best path to go, and we have a lot of licensing and policy and procedure hurdles that we have to get through, but we plan on getting something going with that towards the end of this year. MCOT and educating the community, we want people to know about that service that we have. We want people to know that if they are in crisis, they don't need to be alone. 988 is a new thing. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. If somebody is in a mental health crisis, instead of calling 911, if they call 988, they will get the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which in Utah, if they have a Utah number, it will actually go up to UNI, and they can get local supports. UNI is the one that calls our MCOT to respond to crises. So we'll keep promoting and educating people on that. We've been working with San Juan School District to get working into the schools. Before COVID happened, we were very involved in the schools. Schools shut down. We got kicked out of schools because they weren't there. And then we couldn't hire staff. But now we are at a place, we've been working with the schools for several months trying to get back in there, and we're almost there. Mm-hmm. Client housing is always an issue. We have some pretty big needs with clients, and housing is hard. And so we want to be working on ways so that we can improve that and what we can do there. And our other focus is improving our OQ and satisfaction scores. We give outcome measure questionnaires to our clients every month, and we kind of monitor that. So there are things that we're doing with our clinical staff to work and improve those. And then the opioid settlement money that the county so graciously gave to us.
to manage, which is a reporting fund.
Yeah.
All that.
Thanks for that reporting requirement. But what we're planning on doing with that is our first priority is to make sure we provide MAT, which is medication assisted treatment in jail. If somebody goes into the jail and they aren't on any of those medications, we want to make sure they continue to stay on that. And so we will provide funding to the jail so they could provide the medications and the nursing support with that. And then we want to purchase more Narcan to give out to people. I don't know if you guys know much about it, but if somebody's in opioid withdrawal or opioid overdose, it is a life-saving drug. There needs to be more of it out there, because if there's one thing that'll save lives, that is it. And then we're also working on contingency management, which is an aftercare program for our drug court. Once our drug court people get through, we don't want them to just, once they graduate, to just drop off, because they have a lot of support in the drug court. We want to be able to kind of continue it a little bit after they graduate. And so we're working on this aftercare program. And that is it. Do you guys have any questions?
I just want a quick, this is something for the future, a receiving place.
A receiving center?
Yeah, receiving center. I think something that would be really beneficial for the county. So someday me and you can have a conversation. And I noticed that when you show the adults and the youth being served, that the youth is diminishing. So it can be a possibility, because you did tragically lost 3 counselors, probably they work with the youth. And so I hope those are being replaced with that type of people that would work with the youth. And so I have a concern for youth, because I did lose a son to suicide, and I think it's so important if they can find a friend where they can talk about it. So thank you.
Yeah, and since December, we've actually hired 2 therapists that are focusing more on youth and children. So we've got them there now.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just want the other two commissioners to know how lucky we are to have Tammy running this program, and Aaron and all the people that work down there. This is not an easy organization to run. I mean, we have been through hell and high water with this organization.
Yes.
And Tammy's awesome. She just
thank you to you and your staff and the whole team. You have a big team.
And I appreciate the support. And honestly, the only reason why I can do it is because I do have such good staff. I've got the best clinical director. I've got a great prevention person. I've got amazing therapists. I've got great case managers. It's an exciting place to be right now.
You have a good board.
And we have a good board.
Yeah.
And we have good support from you guys.
Yeah.
I know a lot of other local mental health authorities do not have the support from their county like I do. And so I really do appreciate that. This back?
Yeah. Rebecca, do you have a comment?
I do. Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Adams and Commissioner Stubbs and Commissioner Harvey and all those that are there. I just want to also add to Tammy leadership at the San Juan Counseling Center. She does a great job, and also her staff. We do some partnership with San Juan County Public Health. And just to reiterate what she said about the success of the community mapping activity that's happening in each communities has been very important and valid, and that was needed. So we let the people from the communities talk about strengths and areas that needs to be improved. But I just want to say thank you, Tammy and Aaron and your staff for doing a great job for the county and our county members, both on and off the reservation, and our towns throughout the county. Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, commissioners. We have a great program and we have a good organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, you got all that feel good stuff today, Tammy. So
we just arrange your load.
Maybe I'll come more often.
You can come, we can rearrange your load and we send you back.
Tammy and I run into each other up at UAC every once in a while. My USIP board meeting's up there about the same time she has her meetings in Salt Lake. Appreciate you. Appreciate the report.
Yep.
I think it's really helpful for the new commissioners to understand what your organization is about.
Yep. And if you ever have any more questions, stop by, come find me. One last thing, my area plan will be coming up, so I will be asking to come back in May to have you guys approve that. So, fun stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did Aaron want to say anything, or is he's just here for, he's just eye candy, isn't he?
He's my support in case you don't say those good things.
With that head and that beard, he's just eye candy. That's all it is to it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioners, I wanted to save my comments for the very end. In regards to the report from Tammy, I also wanted to express my appreciation, particularly with the San Juan PAC. SJCPAC. And it's because of this. For once you have an organization who's going out into the communities and facilitating input from local citizens. And Monument Valley and Montezuma Creek CPAC mapping meetings were very valuable, because for once you have the county coming into the reservation and being offered input and inclusion. And one valuable thing too was the survey was modified to include the local chapters of Red Mesa, I believe Ojeto, and Anna was one of them. So I have to disagree with you when you say it takes more than 2 staff members, because you got Lynn Mitchell and Shauna Shiro who are championing that endeavor. And it takes caring hearts and people who want to make a difference, to make an impact.
I agree.
And they're the ones that are out there. So tell them I said thank you. Commissioner Harvey says thank you. And to keep the hard work going, because as long as we engage our communities that are in San Juan County, we'll be able to have a healthier community. And I think I also met clinical director at one point through Child and Family Services. 7th District Juvenile Court, I know, is a big piece of your client listing. And I remember court reports are huge. I know there is a need for substance abuse treatment, and I like the solutions that are being worked on. And another valuable piece that I kind of saw that's important is the endeavor to get the school counselors back into the school districts. Because if I remember correctly, Whitehorse High School is struggling because of the impact of COVID, having these students stuck in their homes and not knowing what to do with themselves, and the loss of close family members that had occurred, and being thwarted back into social activities when you've been isolated for so long. It's kind of been hard. So the sooner we can get those therapists out to the students so they're accessible would be wonderful. So I hope that happens soon. Then again, the schools are ending, in 2 months?
Yeah.
So if we can continue that would be great. I'll leave my comments at that. Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, I think we're going to transition right into our commission meeting.
Okay, give me a second.
We need to give